Search is changing faster than most marketing teams can keep up, and the people who figure it out first are going to have a massive advantage. I'm Andrew Yan, CEO of AthenaHQ, and today we're sitting down with Chris Long from Nectiv. He's one of the people actually at the front lines of where AEO is going and what comes next. If you're a marketer trying to wrap your head around AI search, AEO, or just what to do with your content strategy, this one's for you. Chris, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about who you are, your background, why we're here today?
Yeah, so I'm Chris Long, the co-founder of Nectiv, and we help companies in their B2B, Series B and beyond help grow in terms of their SEO and AI search. So you graciously flew me out to San Francisco. We actually had that opportunity to meet up in PA, which was great, kind of a shared commonality. We're both from that area. So I appreciate you following me up and flying me all the way out here. It's been awesome.
East Coast to West Coast migration, one person at a time, one SEO at a time. Cool. SEO, let's talk about SEO, AEO, GEO. What are the biggest differences you're seeing in these two practices?
Yeah, and it's a huge debate, right, Andrew, because there's a lot of crossover and a lot of differences of opinion that I'm sure you know that people have around how AEO differs than SEO. I think it's different in a few different ways. The biggest way that it's different is there's just so many more variables, right? It's no longer just about the on-site experience. Yes, that's a huge portion of it, right? But what a lot of people aren't considering is like, it essentially exists in like 4 different ecosystems, in my opinion. Your own site, Reddit, third-party sites, oftentimes affiliate sites, and then also YouTube and video channels. So that's one of the biggest ways it's different, because now I think a lot of SEOs, growth marketers in general, like when they're thinking about an AEO strategy over an SEO strategy, they need to think about like all of these different ecosystems. Like you might write about a particular topic like on your site and, have a lot of own content around that. But when it comes to Reddit, maybe people don't mention you for that. And that's a big gap that I think a lot of brands like aren't tapping into. So just the concept that the AEO strategy exists in these separate ecosystems is really, really fundamental to the kind of point of AEO.
It definitely feels like the surface area of your overall strategy is expanded by so much. For those of us in the audience, what have you seen has stayed the same between the two?
So a lot of the ways that the AEO and SEO are the same is that a lot of these systems are inherently built off Google search, right? If you think about Gemini and AI mode, those are obviously all based off of Google's own indexing systems. There's a lot of data studies that show that performing better on Google likely gets you better positions in AI overviews, AI mode. But even other systems like ChatGPT, there's a lot of different data studies around it. They are most likely using Google systems to inform their indexing. And one thing that we've seen in some other data studies is, especially when they released GPT-5, ChatGPT's search crawling events, they increased by like 20%, basically overnight on August 7th. So what that shows us is that instead of using their own knowledge base to give you a response, they're actually relying on a web index, likely Google's, to give you those answers. So performing SEO, improving your positions in Google actually helps you show up more in AI search. We're just seeing a lot of the models still relying on web indexes for their actual information when they actually pass that response to the customer.
And for the VPs of marketing or marketing leaders who are looking to start an AI AEO program, what should they be looking to avoid?
Yeah, I think they should be looking to avoid one. They need to avoid trying to optimize for like all models, right? I think it's very important to understand, right, which models you're really trying to target. Like where's your ICP? Are they on ChatGPT? Are you trying to, go in the future and optimize for AI mode, where I think things are going to be, right? You need to understand an individual model, right? Like use Athena and say, hey, how do the citations on ChatGPT differ than the citations on AI mode? Because like what we're seeing, right, is like for, Perplexity or AI mode, for instance, like Reddit matters a lot. Now it matters a lot in ChatGPT too, but like not always the case when we look at like the top 5 citations of some of the customers, right? So I think knowing which model you're optimizing against. One is, I think, also trying to keep it in a silo too. It goes back to what we were saying before. Like, I think AEO is going to be much more cross-functional than SEO ever was. Like SEO, you could run a program with just your SEO completely siloed off. Yeah, maybe give them some content creation. But you really need, for AEO, you need your AEO strategist, SEO strategist, whatever you're calling it, like kind of pulling multiple levers. Yeah, working with the social team, working with video content creation. Like you need to really structure your AEO team for success by giving them cross-functional access. I think it's like truly one of the only ways to have like a successful AEO program. As I'm just curious on your end, like for some of your clients, like what are the trends you're seeing across like the top AEO performing teams?
It's a great question. We see a lot of our top performing customers treat AEO. I think your framing of it as cross-functional is really important because they treat it as not just something just the SEO department owns, but actually the entire marketing org or a sizable chunk of the marketing org owns, where it isn't just on page, right? And off page sometimes may be more important for certain industries, where if you're in a more regulated industry, for example, off page might matter more because on page gets biased less. And this depends a lot on which vertical you're in, and it's very much on a vertical by vertical basis. We've seen some customers find tremendous success with just on page, which works for certain verticals, while other verticals are more off page heavy. And the most successful orgs recognize that we need to adapt our strategy to our vertical and not just take a generic one size fits all approach.
100%. Like it's like I think it's important to follow a lot of like the data studies that are out there. It's like yes, you're going to see like Reddit, YouTube, and those things come up, which I firmly think it's in those ecosystems. But I think the highest performing teams will actually segment down to like how important is Reddit for my vertical, right? Like we're working with some like retail sites, right? Where it's like some of the highest, like some of the sites that influence AEO the most are like these really niche, like third-party affiliate sites that write a lot about their products and have gained authority in the search engines over time, and they get cited a lot by like AI mode ChatGPT. So that's never going to come up in like a large-scale data study that looks across finance and SaaS and commerce. But for them, it matters a ton. So I think it's like the ability to go down and segment to like which citations matter the most. I think I agree. I think it's going to be critical.
Yeah, and segmenting and also prioritizing in a very quantitative way of being able to say, hey, we have this long tail of websites that are all AI is pulling from, but what is the individual weight of each one of these? And how do you allocate, if you're an affiliates marketer, you're allocating your spend, like how do you allocate that attention and budget? What do you allocate that to?
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I think affiliate is one of my hot takes. I think affiliate's more important than it's ever been. I think it's like this AEO, the AEO approach is like almost kind of blending like paid and SEO to some degrees, where it's like you need to be careful. You need to know what like affiliates say about you. Like Forbes has been smacked in terms of like SEO. They actually got like hold on, pause. Try not name brand names that have gotten smacked. Forbes is fine. Okay, sorry. Try not to say negative. Okay. Should I just retake from there?
Yep.
Okay. So a good example is like Forbes. They got hammered in terms of SEO about like 2 or 3 years ago. Basically, Google found out they were doing some like parasite affiliate stuff. But when we look at ChatGPT citations for certain industries, we see they are still enormous. So it's like if you're in maybe the SaaS space or the commerce space, I mean, that Forbes might be really important for what AI is saying about your brand on ChatGPT specifically. But you wouldn't know that if you just look at like standard catch-all data studies. So I think SEOs, growth marketers are going to need to get more involved with the affiliate space. It's something that's traditionally been outside of SEO's wheelhouse, but I think that can no longer be the case.
And that's also an advantage where we see a lot of challenger brands win over incumbents who are used to paying for the Forbes or the large publications of the world. We have examples specifically, let's say, for example, in the developer tooling space where you can actually sponsor GitHub repositories. And we have developer tools which are finding this long tail of GitHub repositories to go sponsor, and they're being cited in AI because they're sponsoring these GitHub repositories, which is very creative. And they're uncovering that using Athena to see, hey, this repository, which was previously an open source project, like they are looking for sponsors, and that's a pretty high ROI way to get your name out there.
Well, that's super creative. And I think that's like one of those strategies that like you would only find out if you like are actually tracking like what's performing in your ecosystem. But it's hard to know without it's hard to know without doing that, right?
Cool. Let's talk a little bit about consumer behavior and where we see and how we see AI search, whether it's from ChatGPT or AI mode, changing discovery patterns in B2B and B2C.
Right. It's changing it in multiple ways, right? I mean, Winter released this like really awesome report that basically covered different decision-making paths of like VPs and CMOs. And they actually talked about kind of how a lot of like CMOs especially are using like dual layers between like AI and Google. And what the report said is a lot of them are using AI as a discovery layer, so they're discovering products that way. And then they're using Google as a verification layer. So especially with like, especially in your B2B buying processes, you're seeing a lot of customers start their journey on AI, get product recommendations, and then they're using Google to verify that. They're saying, okay, I want to make sure what ChatGPT said, Claude said is correct. I'm using Google to verify that information, look at reviews, look at red flags. I thought that was a really interesting study. That was a study that Winter did back in February of this year that surveyed different CMOs, VPs. Another way is just that it's getting more long tail, right? It's like search is getting more conversational than it's ever been before. It's like people are asking like, what's the best men's jacket? They're saying, hey, I'm going hiking on Saturday. It's going to be 60 degrees outside. I need a jacket where I'm not going to be too warm or too hot, and I want it made of this material. It's difficult to know what that query is going to be, but like the way I think a lot of brands have to focus on it is like, you need to be giving AI systems, Google, as much of that information as you can, right? Via like product feeds, via structured data, via just like your on-page content, right? Because people are going to search and put in multiple buying criteria like size, comfort, all these different things. And the AI systems are going to then ingest that and then like run that back against likely a product feed or something like that, and then actually give you a response. So I think the conversational nature of how people are prompting is really going to change kind of people's strategies. And I think there's an element where it's like you need to be ensuring that you have all of those different discovery paths on your page in order to be ready for the time someone types in something super long tail that you're able to connect with that. Is that a trend you're seeing on your end?
Yeah, my take is I see AI search as part of a 3-decade-long tradition and 3-decade-long trend since the beginning of search engines, which is consumers are becoming more and more informed before they're making decisions. And it started off with easy access to search and easy access to websites and indexing them. But what we're seeing now is easy access to decision axes along which to make decisions. So in the B2B sense, when you're buying a complex B2B software or B2B service, there are many axes through which you can evaluate the service. And I see a lot of use cases where brands are maybe shown on a few axes, but they're not highlighted on other axes. So they might be seen as being a reliable solution or a highest coverage, but there's not much information about how they're pricing the product or whatever other dimension of the product. And because of that, that's a hole that brands need to be filling in on AI search to make sure that AI can tell that full story and not just tell a partial story of your brand. On the B2C side, we also see a lot of customers in the health and wellness space find AI search to be a very strong channel for them because consumers are always very curious, and AI gives them the medium to actually learn a lot about these new, whether it's supplements or new, vitamins or whatever health-related trends. It's a way for them to discover, learn, and then ultimately decide on what product to buy.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the conversations we're having with our customers is they say their sales teams, especially, it's like buyers are coming in like more informed than ever, right? They've done a lot of the pre-research. They know the pricing. They know how they compare against competitors. In many ways, like, and then we work a lot on the B2B side. they're deeper in the funnel when they're coming from AI search than if they'd ever just kind of like use a traditional search engine for that discovery. Because maybe they use a traditional search engine, they read an article or two, they have an idea of what the product does, but they haven't filled in those gaps, and they haven't gotten content that's personalized to them and their needs. A lot of the buyers today we're talking to say that their customers are coming in much more informed because they've done that deep research already through 10, 20 different prompts, and then they have a better understanding more than ever of how that product is. So I think it's also another consideration, especially on the B2B side, is like if a customer is coming in from AI search, it might even change like the sales cycle and how your AEs your SDRs, right? Like kind of like approach the sales process.
Definitely overall trend we see as well, where if we look at imagine the buying journey as a stack and like as a funnel, then marketing and the time a consumer is spending outside of talking with your team members is expanding that portion, while by the time they get to your team, they're already understanding exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And they might just be able to just sign a contract.
And I'm curious on your take on this, because like what we're seeing a lot of is like, it obviously people are coming in seemingly more qualified than ever from AI search, right? Like more informed, more educated, but in the attribution side, there's less attribution than ever before. So like, I guess with your customers, like how are you kind of like how are you like talking about that, right? Where it's like, hey, like the leads you're getting, the revenue you're getting is really good from AI search, but yeah, it's probably not reflected in your Google Analytics data. Yeah, you might have direct traffic up, you might have organic traffic, but your organic traffic's likely down. How are you kind of like walking customers through that?
I think it becomes a question of quality versus quantity. We all know in the SEO days, you could have a lot of traffic, but it could be low quality traffic, and it doesn't convert well, and it becomes a vanity metric if that's just what we're optimizing for. Versus in today's world with AI search, it is much harder to attribute. But part of it is also thinking about the search space a little bit differently now, not just as a pure acquisition channel, but also in some ways a branding channel, where if AI search is the first time someone hears about your brand, how your brand is mentioned, the attributes AI is associating with your brand, those become more important and actually shape how your consumer, whether you're B2B or B2C, how your buyer perceives your brand. And that's a mentality unlock, which is not, think about buying billboard ads or, CTV or these other channels where it can be a little bit harder to attribute, or linear TV, for example. But that their perceptions are shaped by their first contact in many ways with your brand.
100%, right? And that's like a lot of our customers are saying like, hey, like we're mentioned in ChatGPT, let's say, but like we're getting mentioned as like the best technology for small business, right? But like that is not necessarily accurate. It's like we actually do a lot of enterprise deals. Or one of the other conversations we're having is like maybe the way the brand is positioned in AI was accurate, but like is no longer, because they're shifting models, targeting new client base, whatever it is. That's also, I think, a challenge a lot of brands are going to have to think through is like, how am I being positioned? Is it accurate to what I am? And is it accurate to where we want to be going as a brand? That's a harder conversation to have, and probably it takes a lot more resources in order to shift that. But it's something that companies need to be aware of, because like you said, if you're getting mentioned in a certain way by AI, it is kind of the association that can start to inform the rest of the buyer's journey as they ask deeper questions.
It literally colors how buyers see your company. And I love the example of sometimes some brands get mischaracterized as only serving a particular segment compared to others. And that can be fatal if that's the first impression that you have on your buyer. Another thing we've noticed as well is that the usage of AI in the procurement process is much deeper than I actually originally thought. I believe there's a study by Forrester saying 90% of B2B procurement uses AI in some form or another, which means that it's not just your end users, but procurement teams are also using AI to form a perception of your brand. So if they feel like your brand is not enterprise ready or is not secure or reliable, that can stop deals right in its track.
That's another good point. I think it's something that people haven't been as focused on. I think largely the focus in the community will be like, okay, I want AI as a growth channel, right? Like I'm looking to grow my brand, lower my customer acquisition costs. It's very similar in the math, the calculus people used about SEO, where it's like, it's free traffic, right? That people get that people go into an AI and then they'll find a brand. But to your point, I think there's also an element of a brand protection and brand identity thing. Like if it's being used in the procurement process, if it kills 100K, 200K, 500K, $1 million deal, like that's an expensive cost that a business could incur. I know you all just released Oracle, which helps like financial services companies kind of like demitigate some of that risk. But I think it's also something that brands need to consider, right? Is like how not just is it a growth channel, but like is it actually stalling lead flow, even on deals we already should be getting.
And as all marketers know, what is it, 17 touch or however many touch buying journey, and AI search has that it can be a risk to your buying journey or it can be a strength. And the marketers who really are investing in the channel are developing this perpetual strength on AI search.
100%.
Cool. Let's talk about content. How do we think about the role of the content engineer in AEO and SEO?
Yeah. Strong thoughts on this too. I think I strongly would advise, because in the SEO space, right, there's kind of SEOs have traditionally associated themselves in one of two paths. Either I'm a content SEO and I do content gap analysis and I optimize pages, or I'm a technical SEO and I work on the technical configuration sides of things, make sure Google can crawl JavaScript, all that. I think the content side of SEO, especially, just they need to adapt. I think they need to probably the ones who first need to become more AI forward. I think everyone does, but like content especially, because it's with AI systems, is becoming more of a commodity now, right? It's easier to produce more than ever. I think it's being an SEO who's like, I'm going to optimize 50 title tags a day or 4 pages a day. It's just that's just easier to automate, to be 100% transparent, like via agents, via via Claude Code, whatever you do. There's a million ways to do it. I think content SEOs are going to need to think a lot more about like this concept of being a content engineer, like you mentioned, where it's like, instead of optimizing contents themselves and being the doers, they need to think about, how do I use AI to leverage content systems in order to improve content workflows? So like you might create a content workflow that refreshes 5 blog posts a week or something like that, then have a human in the review loop.
Yeah.
On-site content's probably the easiest way to think about it, but I think there's like opportunity for more, right? Where you can say, I'm going to create a workflow that monitors Reddit and monitors anytime our brand is mentioned, and then creates a sample response that gets sent to our social team that then says how they should respond in Reddit if we already have a presence there. Like you could even use it for like outside signals too. I think businesses are really still struggling to figure out like how to integrate AI. I think if you are the content SEO that can come in and be like, I'm not just going to use AI, but I'm going to build a system on how to better incorporate it, you're going to be extremely valuable moving forward. So I would urge a lot of content SEOs to do that, because I think that's the path forward. I'm assuming you're seeing people, your customers, who are already kind of adapting that mindset.
Yeah, I really love this idea of building a content system. I see 3 levels to this. Level 1 is where you're not using AI at all. You're still manually writing your own content. Level 2 is using ChatGPT or something equivalent to have like a one-time pass on your content. And then level 3 we see is this content system of orchestrating AI agents and humans together, where AI has made content a lot cheaper to produce on a mass quantity scale, but it hasn't done much on the quality side. And ultimately humans are the last 20%, the last mile to getting content that people don't immediately bounce off of. They don't immediately, they actually want to read, and they humans find appealing. So for some of our customers, they're building content systems with their in-house enterprise. They're using enterprise ChatGPT or enterprise Claude. that's one route which we've exposed through MCP, and that makes it super easy to integrate and have data-driven content. Further is the building content directly in Athena, where through our content hub, we have an orchestration layer for combining AI agents and human approval, because we see in verticals where they are heavily regulated, like if you need to review by a doctor. I was talking with a customer this morning where they have multiple countries, and each country you have its own health regulatory approval, and it can get very complex very fast. Or if you're financial services, these more regulated industries, AI actually isn't going to take you all the way. You still need humans, human experts, subject matter, all the SMEs, subject matter experts to take you to that last mile.
Yeah, I like that point. I've seen some creative content engine execution where it's like you said, some customers in like highly regulated industries, what they've done is they've actually created as part of their system, they've actually trained an AI on like all the factors that like make their content compliant. It will then go through, and anytime new content is proposed, that agent will then review that content, make sure it's compliant to their standards, not just like broad level compliance standards, and then give suggested like rewrites and revisions based on that. Once again, that's something that obviously still needs someone to like review, edit, publish. Will probably need to go through the legal team, but like imagine how much time that saves someone on a day-to-day basis. So it's like, if you can be the person to come in and bring that to your boss, like you are going to be extremely valuable in your organization.
Not just valuable, but you be a leader in AI in your org. And one proxy metric I like to use to see how well AI systems are working is how much are humans the bottleneck in your org. Because if you have built a content system where humans become the bottleneck, that means you succeeded in the content system. And that's a benchmark that anyone can be using to see, okay, am I the bottleneck or is AI the bottleneck? And then that is how you rate the quality of your system.
And how do you think, I'm curious, how do you think people should be like thinking about like, where can I use AI agents, whatever you want to call it, to like unlock like higher productivity? Like how do you think someone like should think about that if they're looking like, hey, I run a content process, I do a lot of different things, where should I even get started? Like where do you think people should be like asking themselves like where do I use AI to unlock that?
Yeah. And this is a question I'm sure a lot of content SEOs are asking themselves. And I like to think back. I used to be a big fan of Legos growing up, and I like to think about building a content system as building a Lego castle, in the sense that you have Lego bricks that you can build and they're composable, right? You can swap them out, different colors, whatever. Similarly, today, signals are everywhere. You have signals from Reddit, signals from AI search, signals from YouTube, signals from all these different sources that unify into one content system, where they're like Lego blocks, right? And how you build them together. I would say that's where I would start, is thinking about what are the triggers to certain content workflows. And then once you have the content workflows, how do you think about where people fit in, where you need people, where you don't, where AI can take over, and what that handoff looks like. That's the really key part.
Yeah. I think that's honestly probably a lot of the challenges of a lot of like VPs, CMOs out there, is like, how do I build that? Like, how do I build that Lego creation, right? Is like, what is the right workflow from my org in terms of like all the AI systems? And then when I plug that human in the loop to get like the highest leverage possible, I think in ways like I get asked a lot about like how AI is reshaping like, kind of like marketing leaders and SEOs. Like I think with marketing leaders, that's going to be one of the biggest challenges, is like, what are those systems? What can you use your current team for? And then how do you construct it in order to have like the highest amount of unlock for your brand?
One thing I've seen marketing leaders find a lot of benefit doing is this exercise where you list out all of the activities that your entire marketing team is doing, and then you bucket them. Can human do this? Do I need a human for this, or can AI do this? And sometimes it's a gray area of we need both. And gradually, as I see as the models get more powerful, we'll see more and more move to AI, but whereas AI initiated, but human finished or human polished at the end. And that's a really exciting world. It's a very different world. I imagine marketing in 2028 is going to be very different than today.
100%. Yeah, it's like I think we're already seeing some teams adopt those changes, but I think it's like it's just going to get more common. I think it's going to go from right now. If you're doing that, you're kind of on the innovative side. I think in 5 years, maybe even 2 years, like you said, it's going to be on that's the table stake side.
Yep. Cool. Bring it back to you, Chris. Tell us about some cool stuff you're working on.
Yeah. So I need to think about this. Yeah, so me and my co-founder Jason launched Nectiv back in 2025. It's been a heck of a ride. I am a very conservative person by nature. My co-founder is a little bit more risk-taking than me, and also he's like a full stack dev. So we've just been on this journey for the past year of like, one, how can we create an agency that's like built for the new problems that a lot of like marketers are going to have. Yes, some people still want help with traditional SEO, but like also how do we lead brands into being successful or set up for success in this new era of AI search? My co-founder, it's like, I can't speak highly enough of him, Jason. He's a full stack dev and he just builds all these crazy cool tools. He's built like this like ELT pipeline that looks at like conversion data, traffic data, and like AI search data all in one view. We have a lot of like custom technology to help people like optimize their content workflow, start those content engineering processes by like outlining, refreshing, doing all these types of things. But yeah, what I'm most excited about is like continuing to consult with companies to really figure out like organizationally, where does AI search fit? How do you best structure a team for it? And what are the highest growth levers you need to pull in order to be successful?
Makes sense. And shout out to the Athena team, to Athena customers as well who are listening to this podcast. Thank you so much to Chris Long for joining us and to you for tuning in. If you're curious about how you or your brand appears in AI search, make sure to check us out at AthenaHQ.ai. Take care, and we'll see you next time.